Hi, thank you for joining us today. I'm Crystal Wittevrongle, collaborating with Common Sense Calgary, here to chat with Rob Ward, who is running for Ward 11 Council at City Council in Calgary's upcoming 2025 elections. Rob, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Yes, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Why don't we start right away by your experience? What gives you the foundation that really is leading you into this belief that City Hall is where you belong and where you can make a difference?
Right. Well, I ran in the 2021 election and I finished second place. I was 800 votes short out of 38,000 cast, so it was very, very close. And since that time, I've heard from community associations, community leaders, friends, family, and businesses all throughout Ward 11 that we need better representation in Ward 11. People feel that their voice is not being heard. So that's why I'm running again. And why I think I'm the right person for the job. Obviously, a very close second place last time. So Ward 11 did think that I was a very good option for representation. And I have relevant experience. I took computer engineering in school. I also took business with a degree in business with a major in marketing. I've worked as a financial analyst. I've worked in sales and marketing, and I've worked in tech and also working very closely with small businesses through my own consulting business. So I have a good breadth of experience. I have financial literacy. I understand business and I understand how budgets work.
Great, and that's something that we definitely need at City Hall. And so, you're saying people wanted you to run again. And when you're speaking with people in the community or at the doors, what are you hearing are some of the big challenges or the big concerns for people in your ward?
Number one, and the biggest thing I've already sort of alluded to is representation. So people feel that in Ward 11, they're not being properly represented. They reach out to the counselor, they don't get a response via email. They call, they don't get a response back via call, and so they just feel like their voices are not being heard at City Council.
Mhm.
Other big issues would be blanket rezoning has been a very hot topic in Ward 11. I would dare say it might be hotter in this ward than any other ward. We have a lot of established communities in Ward 11. And another big one would be safety. Not in all communities in Ward 11, but some
Mhm.
communities, especially those closer to the transit line, the LRT line, are seeing a bit more crime, a bit more serious crime. And we've heard voices say that the stats show that crime is down, and the stats do say that, but there's reasons for that. A lot of crime is going unreported, and also some severity of crime has increased. And at the end of the day, people want to feel safe, and stats don't tell you how people feel. And by talking to thousands of people already at doors, the general consensus is that they feel less safe than they did 4 years ago. So that's something
Mhm.
that we need to address. And I would say the last one is just focusing on our core services in our city, making sure that the roads are paved, the water works, that police and fire are funded so that they can keep quick response times and ensure the safety of everyone in Ward 11. Those are the probably top three or four things that I've heard so far.
Mhm. Yeah, and from your perspective, do you think there's anything that people aren't talking about that we should be talking about more as a concern for the ward?
I don't believe so. I think that the residents in Ward 11 are really plugged in. They know what's going on. They care. So when I talk to them, most people, when I say what's important to you, what do you want to see improved or done better, they have a list, and the list tends to be exactly the things I just said.
Perfect. And so when we talk about the challenges, one of the things that kind of stems from that is who really should be doing them. And when we talk about municipal government, um, there's often some issue around city council doing things that they really shouldn't be meddling in or scope creep, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What is your take on what city hall should be doing? What are its core functions of municipal government?
Well, I was talking to a seniors group this morning about this, and I kind of tongue in cheek, it goes back to grade 6 social studies class. What is the role of each level of government, municipal,
Mhm.
provincial, and federal? And when we look at a municipal government, when you pay your property tax bill, what do you expect your city to take care of? And it's the things that I spoke about earlier. We're talking about, roads, water, police, fire. And one of the things that we've put forward as a piece of policy is we're going to close the Sheldon Schumer site at the earliest convenience of the province, because what happens inside those walls is health, and the city is not responsible for health. But what
Mhm.
happens outside of those walls is within our mandate, and that goes to safety. We've
Mhm.
seen, open drug use. We've seen break-ins of vehicle, of businesses, and
Mhm.
people generally not feeling safe when they go past that area. I talked to a business owner recently. She's had her windows smashed to her business multiple times over the last year,
Mhm.
and that's something that we need to focus on. Now, as I said, health is not the mandate of the municipal government, but we need to
Mhm.
work with the province to find solutions for issues like that.
Absolutely, and that was one of my later questions, but I might as well, jump on that now.
Okay.
So if you're saying to close it, what would you propose, like a relocation or to serve that population? If we close it, then what?
Well, and again, this goes back to the roles and responsibilities of the different levels of government. As a municipal
Mhm.
government, our job is to make sure that whatever the province feels is the right move to do, we can help facilitate that process. We are essentially the managers of the land. So whether it be, development permits or any other type of permitting, we can expedite that process to make sure that whatever the new plan of attack is to tackle the drug and mental health crisis, that we facilitate that to make sure that we can solve the problem as quickly and easily as possible. Again, we are not, and me myself, even, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a mental health physician. I'm not going to pretend that I am, but I'm going to do
Mhm.
what I can do within my mandate as a city councillor to help solve that problem.
Mhm. Yeah, so you'd let the city, or you would step back and say, "This is, the provincial government's responsibility, and as a city councillor, I'm here to support what needs to be supported,"
A
is
hundred
what I'm.
percent. I'm there to work with them to make solutions happen.
Okay, awesome. And now I'll jump back to another topic that we kind of touched on, or you kind of touched on, when you were talking about safety, and transit safety specifically. So we've seen some instances of crime being decreasing, as you've mentioned, but there's reasons for statistics being what they are. But there's still instances of violent crime, well into 2025. And so people still don't feel safe. What do you think the city should be doing with its transit strategy to increase ridership, but obviously requires some safety considerations within that?
Well, and you're dead on. That's just it. Is if we want to increase transit ridership, we need to make sure that transit is safe first. I've
Mhm.
talked to a lot of people who say they won't allow their children to go on transit. Even grown adults that take transit downtown. They say, "Well, I used to take transit, but I don't feel safe anymore," and so now they drive downtown, or they, drive to the edge of downtown and then walk in. So we need to focus on making sure that transit is safe first of all,
Mhm.
and from there then we can work on the service itself. And how can we improve transit safety? our
Mhm.
group our group is committed to hiring 500 more police officers over the next two budget cycles. And some people say, well, how are you going to pay for that? I'm very confident that we can pay for that. There's plenty of savings to be had. Also, we've seen a proposal from councillors in the past about putting fare gates to help protect
Mhm.
the line and the platforms. It was immediately dismissed. And I think we could dig into that a bit more, perhaps do a trial at a few stations to see what it looks like and how it functions. But, with anything, I think, dip a toe, do some experimenting, see how it works. Don't commit to massive budgets right off the hop without proof of, proof that it works. So
Mhm.
that's something that we could look into as well.
Yeah, yeah, I remember the discussion about the fare gates, and there was, concerns about cost and some of the
Mhm.
logistical stuff. So, yeah, piloting it would seem to be a reasonable step in that
Yeah.
direction. And when you talk about the hiring of additional personnel and the cost that comes with that, that leads me into the next section, kind of, that I wanted to chat with you about, which is the spending priorities. And so
Mhm.
when we're already seeing record increases for property taxes, um, hearing new spending might freak some Calgarians out, and Calgarians in your ward even. And so, how do you have that conversation with people about, services need to be upheld and increased in many cases, but spending is already seemingly reckless.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to many people, and I don't know about people watching this, but my property tax bill has gone up 42% over the last 4 years.
Mhm.
Fortunately, I live in a dual income home, and there's many people out there, especially our seniors, that are on fixed retirement incomes,
Mhm.
and that is a big hit. Their retirement income doesn't increase, but their tax bill keeps increasing. So it's something that we need to be aware of if we truly care about aging in place and making sure that our seniors are taken care of. This is a very good first step, is to make sure that we don't tax them out of their homes.
Mhm.
In terms of spending, at the last budget, $170 million of motions or amendments were brought to council to help lower the tax burden on residents. And when you actually crunch the numbers on the budget, approximately every, I think it's around 22, $24 million of spend equates to 1% property tax raise. So
Mhm.
170 million divided by 24, your taxes definitely should have stayed the same, if not gone down, had those motions passed. Unfortunately, the majority ate on council once again, in my opinion, made the wrong decision and voted all of those down. And that's how we
Mhm.
arrived at our increased property tax bill once again.
And so how would you see the city unfold over the next 4 years if you were in city council, with regards to spending? Would you think the city needs to spend more or spend less or kind of about the same?
Well, ideally, you would like to see us spend less. Unfortunately, our budget is extremely untransparent, if that's a word. When you look at the budget documents, it is not very easy to interpret and get, fine level detail on. I was a financial analyst. That was my first job out of university, and I like to read a budget line by line and see where money is being spent. So ideally, we would like to see taxes go down. Again, that $170 million at 24 million per percent, they should have gone down. So I don't think
Mhm.
it's unrealistic to say that they can go down, and we need to prioritize our spending on the things that people care about. We've seen our road system filled with potholes. Many of our roads are rated below average now. We need to
Mhm.
take care of the basics first and assign the budget properly. People, if they see proper value for their tax dollar, they're more on board. The problem is right now they're not seeing that value, and that's why they're not okay with these continued tax increases.
Mhm. So then would you see, the priority being the transparency and understanding spending, or would you see it perhaps being reducing property taxes in the immediate term?
It's both, to be
Mhm.
honest, because if we want to reduce taxes, we need the transparency to know where the money is being spent and where the money can be cut from. We can't
Mhm.
uh, we can't just cut things if we don't know where the money is being spent. So, one of the things that I don't love about our election and the way that our council meetings work is, I believe it's 3 weeks after we get sworn in, we're passing a budget. And I think if you look at any other organization, can you imagine being hired onto the executive leadership team of a company and they say, well, guess what? In 3 weeks, you're going to have to approve the budget for the whole company. You don't even know the company yet. It's crazy. So that's something I would like to see changed. But thankfully, hopefully, we have some good incumbent counselors that have done this before and can help guide
Mhm.
some of the newer counselors. But yeah, overall, I don't think it's unrealistic to at least hold the line, and preferably, I would love to see a tax cut for once.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of Calgarians would also like to see that.
Oh yeah.
Uh, well, and when we look, we're expecting another budget surplus this year. Um, in your perspective, what should be done when that's the case? Should the money be put into a reserve fund? Should the money be directly returned to residents? What do you think?
Well, first of all, let's fix the issue. I mean, our current mayor, it's funny how attitudes change when an election comes around, but she has even said, well, we need to fix the formula to make sure that we're not overtaxing people. So
Mhm.
if you read between the lines there, she wants to stop overtaxing people, which means she wants to return the money to the residents because it shouldn't have been taken in the first place.
Mhm.
So I think that's a very easy answer. You would give the money back to the residents because it shouldn't have been taken in the first place.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and that that leads me to some of my bigger picture thoughts, where we're thinking about kind of the longer term Calgary, so large infrastructure. When we look back to what happened last year with the water main break in June 2024, you know, there was so much that was mishandled with that. And I think Calgarians felt very frustrated with City
Yep.
Council. How do you feel about how that was handled from your perspective, from everything from management to communications of that incident?
Um, not very well is what I will say. I don't think it was communicated very well right from the get-go. I think the updates were lacking detail and clarity. Um,
Hmm.
I think there's some people that could benefit from some crisis communications training.
Hmm.
Um, and it shouldn't have happened in the first place. My understanding is we knew that this pipe was in disrepair, and we kicked the can down the road, and we've seen council find ways to spend money on things that, like, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me when I say that water is very, very important. It might be the number one priority for our city, because without water, how are we showering? How are we cleaning our clothes? How are we cooking? How are babies being fed their formula? This is a top level priority. So
Mhm.
yeah, we need to focus again on the basics, on the core services, to make sure that this is never repeated again. And we need to make sure that if something does happen, it's communicated very clearly, very transparently, so people aren't left guessing. There was a lot of people that the rules got so strange. Like
Yeah.
people were very confused. So yeah, some
Yes.
crisis comms training might be in order.
Yes. Yes. And so, if you were successful and in representing your ward on city council, how would you change how the city prioritizes certain critical infrastructure? Like you said, they potentially knew about this as an issue and kind of continued on business as usual. How would you change that? Pardon me, in the future.
Well, we need to go on a priority basis of what people expect. Again, water is the very basics, and it doesn't start and end with the water main. We know that I think the number is between 20 and 22% of our water supply is leaked out from our water system every year.
Hmm.
For a city that is called a climate emergency, I would say that leaking 20% of your water supply into the ground, that's not very climate friendly, I would say. So that's something
Hmm.
that needs to be addressed very quickly. In terms of prioritizing, it's the basics that I talked about. We need water, we need safety. If you don't
Hmm.
have a safe city, you have nothing. So for me, safety is a non-negotiable. Our roads that we drive on every single day, I've talked to many residents who have hit massive potholes and caused thousands of dollars damage to their vehicle. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's okay with that.
No.
Um, and even just general maintenance of our city. We've seen green spaces, playgrounds, parks where it's taken over by weeds. Even the city put out a statement about I think it's called foxtail, the foxtail weeds, and
Oh
how they
yes.
would fine you if it was on your property. Meanwhile,
Hmm.
I walk by city properties and it's infested with it. So if you're going to threaten residents with a fine, walk the talk. So
Hmm.
yeah, prioritizing the basics, the things that people expect from their city. That's what I would do.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I agree that those are definite priorities and something the city should be focused on. I want to pivot now to what you said is one of the hottest topics
Mhm.
and potentially most important for your ward, which is the blanket rezoning. And
Yes.
so, what is your position on it? I think I already know,
I
but
think you
let's
might
hear
know.
it.
Repeal on day one, on the first regular meeting of council, repeal that and change it back to the way we have been doing it for many, many years in Calgary. The problem with the blanket rezoning policy is you've taken residents' voices out of the process. If there was a redevelopment permit going up next to you, you used to have your one day at council where you could go and express some concerns you had or some thoughts about it,
Hmm.
and now that's gone. You have no input anymore. It's even happened on my street. We just learned that we had a duplex approved. Nobody had any idea it was going on, but it's approved, it's done, and our
Hmm.
voices don't matter. And I think that's wrong. Anytime you take away residents' voices, from the process, I just can't understand how anybody can think that that's a good thing.
Hmm.
The development permitting process, we can trade one day of public hearing and knock several days, several weeks off of the process. If we want to get housing built quicker, taking away public hearing is not the way to do it. It's a solution in search of a problem. We can
Hmm.
look into the internal processes and speed that up to make sure that we get housing built properly with resident input where it makes sense. That is
Hmm.
a better policy.
And that leads me to thinking about, the reason for blanket rezoning, or at least part of the reason, stated reason, being the need for housing and affordable housing in a lot of cases, multi-unit, and so on. And so, if not the blanket thoughts about or approach to affordable housing, like, you've said a few things here that I'm pretty sure I know what direction you're going to go with this, but um, do you feel like the city should be then instead shifting to a more subsidized affordable housing model then, if this goes back to status quo and it's taking so much longer for development, or should they stand out of the way of getting those things built in the first place?
Well, we need to focus housing on where it makes sense. And let's be perfectly clear here. Right now, in the city of Calgary, and this is without blanket rezoning, before blanket rezoning, we have
Hmm.
enough zoned land ready to build 440,000 homes. We can
Hmm.
do that today without blanket rezoning. We just need to get the homes built. So my proposal is to focus around major corridors and transit-oriented development to build proper affordable housing. And we need to work with the other levels of government to make that happen. The city, it should not be in the real estate game. It's in the land permit and approval game. Let's make
Hmm.
it as easy as we can to make these things happen while making sure that we do it in the correct place, being respectful of existing communities and neighbors, and just facilitate a cleaner and quicker process. That's where the city should be in this whole equation of housing. Yeah, I'm not opposed to building more housing. We just need to be more intelligent about it and make it happen quicker. That's all.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that's a very practical response.
I
Um,
like to think
and
so.
And so you just mentioned transit-oriented communities. And so I'm now going to pivot towards the Green Line
Yeah.
LRT, which is a topic that is very heated
Yes.
amongst certain groups. What are your thoughts on that? We know that the original proposal for that project is not what is now proposed. It's going to be a lot shorter, more expensive, and serve less Calgarians. What's your
Yeah.
perspective on that scenario?
There is a lot that goes into this. To start with, you talked about shorter and more expensive. The track is now proposed to be half the length at double the cost. To me, that's a failure of project management. If I went to my boss and I said, "Hey, that project I'm working on, I'm going to deliver half of it, and it's going to be twice as expensive," I think I know what their response would be, and I'd be grabbing a box. So, not good where we are now. Right now, we have sort of a battle between the city and the province, but what I'm hearing from residents is, the southeast is very underserved by transit. I have Quarry Park, Riverbend, Douglasdale, Douglas Glen in my ward, which is right around where this green line is going to go. And
Mhm.
people, I hear it constantly, we're underserved by transit. If they want to go to, downtown or McMahon Stadium or the Saddle Dome or even Telus Spark or anything like that to get anywhere, it's really a terrible experience for them. It's a
Very
really
common.
long transit trip. So we need to get something done. Do I like this elevated proposal from the province? I don't know. I would need more detail about it. We would need engagement with the people that it's going to affect. But one of the biggest things that I'm hearing from the residents in Ward 11 is the concerns around transit safety. If we look at a city of Calgary crime map, it basically glows ember along the C train line because the
Mhm.
C train line is how crime comes into neighborhoods. So people in Riverbend especially are saying, yeah, we might like transit, but we don't like the crime that's going to come along with it. And that's something that if we're going to build a green line, we need to really make sure that our transit is safe and not spreading crime into these neighborhoods. Because can you imagine, you lived in Riverbend your whole life? It's, a generally safe community, and all of a sudden we build an LRT line and the crime comes with it. I would be pretty upset. I don't blame people for asking me about it. It is a real big concern.
Hmm. And so, if you were councillor for Ward 11 and the Green Line LRT was moving forward and there was yet another cost overrun, how would you approach that?
Well, we'd have to see what it looks like, I guess. But yeah, if we continue to see escalated cost with less deliverables, it might be time to look at an alternate solution. Perhaps that's a BRT, rapid transit line. Um, yeah, it's hard to say without the context of what may happen, but um, yeah, if we go to another doubling of the budget and halving of the deliverables, then yeah, we have a serious problem and we might have to look at alternatives.
Hmm. And so, in terms of these big projects, there's also been 4 other large projects that have been approved by council recently, even though the CFO said we can really only do one. So there was the event center, the BMO center expansion, Arts Commons, and the Foothills Field House. If you're in city council and yes, it turns out you could really only do one, then what?
Um, I guess I would have to go with the arena because we know that bless the Saddle Dome. I have some great memories there. I'm sure everybody does, but it's falling apart and it's actually becoming kind of dangerous now. So while I don't love how that was negotiated, I think that whenever a deal falls apart, you're giving up power in a negotiation. So that wasn't
Mhm.
great. But we do need a new arena or entertainment center. It's a big part of any world class city, and if we want to attract more tourism, more big events, big acts to our city, then that's a big part of that. And as we know, the arena is well underway. We've broken ground, it's being built. So I think that's the one I would go to. I think if we build a BMO center expansion or Arts Common, I don't mind the Arts Common idea, but I think when we have such a large status symbol as the Saddle Dome in our city, and it's become very clear that it's at end of life, we need to replace that.
And so when they said like we could only do this if we took on significant financial risk and these projects were still approved, do you think that was the right call, or would you have suggested potentially a different route?
I would have liked to see another route, but you know what? The deal's done. I can't change it now, and I firmly believe the best deal is the deal that is signed. I know other candidates are talking about I would have got a better deal. Show me that deal and show me that the other side would have accepted it because words
Mhm.
are words, signatures are deals.
Yes, very well said. And so, having discussed these specific policies and priorities that are affecting Calgary, about your values and experiences. And this is a unique time for Calgary, for all of Alberta, in that this is the first time we're having municipal parties,
Mhm.
uh, local parties at this level. Are you affiliated with any parties, and how, if so, which, and if not, is there a reason for that?
Yeah, so I'm with the Communities First Party. Full disclosure, when I announced that I was running, I had 3 different parties approach me
Mhm.
to, Communities First, a Better Calgary Party, and Jeff Davison campaign approached me as well, which didn't materialize into anything. So the reason I went with Communities First is because I made it very clear that although I'm part of a party, I still need to independently represent the residents of Ward 11. And so
Mhm.
our party allows us to vote as independents, as individuals. So if something comes to council that, the majority of the party thinks is a good idea, we don't have a party whip. I can vote against that if I believe that that is how the residents of Ward 11 want me to vote.
Mhm.
So, it's a party out of basically necessity, out of the provincial legislation, but we have an overarching principle that you represent your residents first, your communities first, and that's why we called it Communities First. And yeah, people will say, his signs are different. Well, yeah, my signs are teal. They were teal in 2021. I have a brand that is established and recognized, and I wanted to stick with that. And that's just another example of how our party functions, is we truly do operate as independents, as representatives for our ward. And
Mhm.
so that's why I chose the party I did.
And what about at the provincial or federal level? Do you have any affiliations or,
I'm glad you
experience
asked. I'm glad you asked. I was talking about this with the seniors group this morning. There's some rumor out there. I don't know who's perpetuating it, that I am the UCP party or something like that. I'm here to tell you that that is absolutely 100% not true. I made the joke this morning. It's not even a joke. I'm serious. If I walked into a UCP caucus meeting tonight, I don't think anybody would know who I am. I really don't. Um, yeah, we're not affiliated. We and I are not affiliated with any political parties, whether it be provincial, federal, or anything like that. Our candidates are very varied on our group, but what binds us is that overarching principle of representing your residents and your community first, and then we have our 7 campaign priorities. So things like focusing on core services, spending tax dollars intelligently, focusing on community safety by hiring 500 more police officers, and having a good relationship with the provincial and federal government, regardless of
there?
who's in power. Right now, it's the UCP. It might be the NDP one day. Right now, it's the Liberals. It might be the Conservative government in a few years. So,
Mhm.
whoever's in power, we have to make sure that we have a good relationship with them to best represent the city of Calgary and Ward 11 residents. And, throwing attacks out on social media is doing nothing to improve that relationship. I believe, sometimes in life you have to work with people that maybe you don't like or you don't agree with or you don't get along with. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you have a job to do. Be mature, be a professional, and get the job done.
Yeah, I fully wholeheartedly agree. I think that in recent years, at all levels of government, it's kind of devolved into a little bit of mudslinging at times, and it's just
Oh yeah,
not productive.
it is
I'd love
not.
to see us get back to a place where, policy is what we're discussing and not personal attacks. And so,
Yeah, we
yeah,
can we can disagree on how we get things done, but at the end of the day, we have to get things done.
exactly. Yeah. So Rob, this has been wonderful. I've loved hearing your perspectives on all of these things and all of these issues. And so if we were leaving one thought with the viewers today and the voters in Ward 11, what is the one thing you want to leave behind that either we touched on or maybe we didn't?
I would just say, when you go to the ballot box, think about what has happened over the last 4 years with our city and with our government and with our city council. And think, has city council and both your life in our city, has it been better over the last 4 years, the same, or possibly worse? A lot of people are saying worse. I'm bringing forward a platform and a promise that you're going to have proper representation at council going forward. When you email me, you will get a response. When you call, you will get a response. If you want me at your, community association board meeting or something like that, I will attend. Or at the very worst, I will send one of my staff and they will make notes that then get sent to me and I will follow up with you. Ward 11, it's been very clear that we have not had proper representation for 4 years now, and I am going to change that. I'm going to make sure that your voices are back at city council and you have strong representation again.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again. And to everybody watching, thank you for joining us. Let's get out to vote this October. Stay engaged, stay informed, and let's hope for a prosperous city moving forward. So thank you, Rob, for spending the time with us today.